Hola chicos, I just wanted to walk you through this activity that you're going to do today. This is similar to what we did when we learned the verb to go, but a little bit different because I'm asking you to do a couple more steps and it's a little bit more visual than what I had you do last time. So parte uno es los verbos. You're going to look at all the verbs that I have listed down here. Um, and this is all a list of every verb that we've learned so far this year. And what I'd like for you to do is consider these three questions while you look at the verbs. So the first question is, can you identify any patterns? So look through them, read them. I'm going to read them to you here just in a second so you can hear them if that helps you. The next thing I'd like you to think about is, what do they have in common? Are there similarities? Maybe that goes into the patterns as well. Maybe one of the patterns you see is a similarity among the verbs. And finally, the last question that you should consider is, what rules or irregularities do you know about some of them? So are some of them a little bit different where you know they don't really fit the patterns or the rules or the steps that we've learned so far? And there should be four of those that you find in here that don't fit the rules that we've learned so far. So I'm going to read them to you now, and then I'll come back and tell you the next step. Ser, estar, tener, ir, contestar, enseñar, llegar, necesitar, sacar, tomar, usar. Comer, beber, alquilar, andar, aprender, comprar, correr, descansar, dibujar, escribir, escuchar, estudiar, hablar, hacer, jugar, leer, mirar, montar, pasar, pasear, practicar, preparar, tocar, trabajar, vender, compartir, vivir. These last three are the new ones from our new vocabulary list. So now that you have looked through and analyzed these words and thought about them, the next step I'd like for you to do is to take the verbs and move them. So you can actually click on these guys and move them around. So what I'd like for you to do is move them. I'll fix that for you. Move them into groups. So what are those patterns that you found? Move them into those different groups. After you've moved them into the groups, see if you can come up with a naming convention or a way that you could identify or label the groups. So a hint for you is, one of these groups you should rename as irregular verbs. And the other hint is there are four of those. You're going to find four of them in here that you've learned so far that end up in that irregular verb box. And the rest are going to go into the three other groups, and you should be able to name them that way. So at that point, once you've done that and you've moved them in, you'll see these stop signs. And it says, I'd like for you to stop and go up to take your computer to Mr. Morta, Senor Morta, and have him look over and see if you're on the right track. If you're on the right track, you're good to go. You can keep scrolling down. If when you check in with him, you need a little help, he'll guide you along. So after that, what I'd like for you to do is we're going to start to talk about, so pause the video here. Please stop listening, check in with Mr. Mora, come back, hit play again once you checked in with Mr. Mora. So now, we now know that the four groups are AR verbs, ER verbs, IR verbs, and irregular verbs. We have learned those irregular verbs and we've learned AR verbs. So let us now reflect on that. So thinking about the AR verbs, we just did that recently. What are the steps you have to take to conjugate an AR verb? So click into this box right here and type out the steps that you do to complete or to conjugate an AR verb. So how you make it say, I talk for hablar, he talks, you talk, we talk, they talk. And then what are the endings that you need for AR verbs? Once you've completed that, go on down here and think about the same thing for ER verbs. So we just categorized a bunch of verbs into the ER verb category, and here are three examples, comer, beber, and vender. What I'd like for you to do is look through these sentences. I'm going to read them to you in a second. You can look at them and then think about how up the patterns you see. Can you create rules based on the patterns that you see? And if you can, go ahead and write the steps of how do you think that you can conjugate an ER verb. Also, once you've looked at this, you've got a chart down here. Can you identify what the endings are for these ER verbs? So now I'm going to read the sentences for you, so for those of you that hearing it helps. Comer. Yo como un sándwich de jamón y queso. Tú comes una manzana. Ella come una ensalada de fruta. Jorge come un pastel. Usted come una hamburguesa. Eduardo y yo comemos sopa. Las chicas comen cereal. Ellos comen una pizza. Ustedes comen el pan. Beber, to drink. Yo bebo un refresco. Tú bebes un jugo de naranja. Él bebe leche. Elena bebe café. Usted bebe un jugo de manzana. Nosotros bebemos agua. Ellas beben té. Julio y Mateo beben refrescos. Ustedes beben jugo. Vender, to sell. Yo vendo mi mochila. Tú vendes un reloj. Julián vende el papel. Serena vende un sándwich. Usted vende las bebidas. Nosotros vendemos la fruta. Anita y Sara venden leche y jugo. Nico y José venden el almuerzo. Ustedes venden el desayuno. Just as a reminder, looking through these sentences, what are the rules and steps that you need to take based on what you know to conjugate ER verbs? Also, looking at those examples, what are your endings? Complete this chart. So now we've looked at ER verbs and we looked at AR verbs. I'd like for you to do the same thing with IR verbs. I'm going to read these sentences to you, then you're going to complete the box of what are the steps I have to do to conjugate an IR verb, and then the endings. What are my endings for IR verbs? Here are just a few examples of some of the IR verbs that we've learned so far. Escribir, to write. Yo escribo una carta. Tú escribes un correo electrónico. Julia escribe un ensayo. Él escribe un poema. Usted escribe mucho. Nosotros escribimos en la clase de inglés. Ellas escriben muchos mensajes de texto. Ellos escriben en un cuaderno. Ustedes escriben sus nombres en el papel. Yo vivir, to live. Yo vivo en una casa. Tú vives en Virginia. Él vive en Oakton. Ella vive en California. Usted vive en un apartamento. Nosotros vivimos en Washington, D.C. Ellas viven juntas. Ellos viven en la misma calle. Ustedes viven al lado de la escuela. Compartir, to share. Yo comparto la mesa con mi amiga. Tú compartes el desayuno con tu perro. Él comparte el refresco con su amigo. Ella comparte el pan con su madre. Usted comparte sus apuntes conmigo. Nosotros compartimos las uvas. Ellas comparten el queso. Ellos comparten los lápices y bolígrafos. Ustedes comparten la casa. Quick recap. Look at these sentences, identify the rules and the steps that you would take to conjugate an IR verb. Then, what are your endings based on the sentences you see above for IR verbs? All right, so here's a special section. El verbo hacer. Hacer means to do or to make, and we've looked at that one a couple times this year, but we haven't had to conjugate it yet, and there's a reason. Hacer is an ER verb that mostly follows the rules. There's just the one exception to that rule, and that's the yo form. So yo has an irregular spelling and it's similar to the verb tener. And what I've done is I've already filled in the yo form for the chart below, but the rest follow the ER verbs rules. So if you can, so the yo form for hacer is yo hago, but everything else follows the rules. So based on the rules that you made up here, past the IRs, up here for the ERs, how would you apply these rules and these endings to the verb hacer? Go ahead and fill in your chart. All right, here's another alto sign, which is telling you to stop. At this point, after I'm done with a sentence, I'd like you to pause the video, go up, check in with Mr. Mora, have him take a look at what you came up with for your rules for ER and IR verbs and your endings for ER and IR verbs and your conjugation of hacer. If you're on the right track, you're good to move on to part 3. If you're not, check in with him and see if he can help you along to figure out where you maybe went a little bit astray. Pause now to go check in with Mr. Mora. Welcome back. The final thing you're going to do to practice for this is to go over to Google Classroom. So you're going to leave here and leave this open because you're going to want to refer to it, and go back on into Google Classroom and open the document called U3A Practica or Gramática Verbos IR or IRER. You're going to work on this in class today. If your table partner or someone else in the room is starting to work on this, you can work with them if you'd like to, or you can work independently, whichever you prefer. Tomorrow in class, we'll go over those answers together and check in on what you learned today. Nos vemos el martes y buena suerte con esta actividad.